courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast. This is episode number 440. I am Andrew in our forum, and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. I'm joined as always by Derek. He is D43 in our forum, and D4384 on Twitter. Derek, good to be talking with you as always. Big news this week with MyNBA Eras in NBA 2K23. We will be getting to that, but first of all, what else is going on?
Andrew, I'm sad.
Sad?
Sad. And I don't think Garfield Cart could even fix this mood.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I'm usually so positive on this show. I've been spending a ton of time lately with NBA Shootout 2004 and, for the PlayStation 2 and NBA Inside Drive 2004 for the Xbox. Yeah, I've been posting highlights on Twitter. I posted a Shootout 2004 video to the NLSC YouTube, and you can tell I'm having fun with those games, right?
Absolutely. Hooked on them right now.
Yeah, I'm absolutely hooked on them. And it just got me thinking about the sad state of basketball gaming today. And, I went back and looked at how many basketball video game titles were released in 2003. And it really is mind-blowing. It's even more mind-blowing for 2002. But I wanted to go over the number of basketball titles that were released in 2003. So these are, games that the video gaming population could choose from just in the basketball gaming space. So these are the basketball gaming titles that were released in 2003. NBA Street Volume 2, NBA Jam, NBA Shootout 2004, NBA Live 2004, ESPN NBA Basketball, ESPN College Hoops, NCAA March Madness 2004, NBA Inside Drive 2004. That was all of those games, every single one of them were released in 2003. And that covers street hoops with NBA Street, arcade, fast-paced action in NBA Jam, multiple NBA games, NBA Shootout, NBA Live, ESPN NBA Basketball, NBA Inside Drive, and a couple college games, NCAA March Madness 2004 and ESPN College Hoops. How crazy is it that we had that many choices in 2003? Now we only have one, and it's only an NBA game.
It's something that we've talked about so many times before, because we remember how good we had it, having that many choices. And there was always some debate, some tribalism and whatnot over which was the best game. But the point is you had the choice. You had personal preference, if nothing else. And you go back, and a lot of these games were doing great things. I mean, I would say that Live and 2K were the brand leaders. Live was very good for many years. People do forget that, as we've also covered before on the show in depth. But you also had these other games that were very fun to play, doing other things that maybe Live and 2K weren't in some cases. And just reading off that list, you know what? That's going to bum me out too.
Yeah, we got all bases covered in that list.
Yeah.
And you said, even though Live in 2K were kind of the brand leaders, they were the most popular. I'm telling you, I've been playing NBA Shootout 2004 and Inside Drive 2004, and they are excellent basketball video games. Like, they are really fun on the sticks. They have great presentation. They have unique options in them, etc. I'm just floored at all the options that we had. Now, get this. That is stacked in 2003 for releases. These are the games that were released in 2002 in the basketball video game space. College Hoops 2K3, NCAA March Madness 2002, NBA Courtside 2002, NBA Inside Drive 2002, NBA Jam 2002, ESPN NBA Tonight 2002, Street Hoops, NBA Shootout 2003, NBA 2K3, NBA Live 2003, NBA Starting 5. All of those were released in 2002. That is unbelievable. What a selection of games.
Again, it's just crazy to think of how many games we'd get and to choose from. And I suppose that was kind of the problem. A great problem to have, obviously. But as far as the market is concerned, a bit of a glut there, and some of them weren't going to survive because the brand leaders were going to get the lion's share of the sales and whatnot. But simply having that choice and going back to it, simply missing having at least two for a start.
Yeah, we don't even have two, and we don't have anything in the arcade space right now either.
Exactly.
It blows me away. I would say that 2003 was probably an overall stronger year, going by the titles that I went over, than 2002, even more well-rounded, you could say. But, I mean, we only got one game right now, and that's consistently being released every year, and for a choice in the basketball gaming space in, 2022. And that's just, it's a damn shame. It's too bad what's happened.
And it certainly makes a preview season, the annual preview season we used to have with Live and 2K, it makes it quite boring now because they do compress it, as we've said before, down to the last month before release. There's kind of one blog per week, or one preview or trailer per week, whereas we used to be getting news at least 2 or 3 days a week, a pretty constant stream, and going back and forth and seeing what was being added in Live and what was being added in 2K, what was improved, what was new. And yes, now we are seeing some pretty cool news this year about 2K23 so far, and again, some great news to discuss this week, and very intriguing news to discuss this week. But it is just one game, as you said, and it is that trickle of news each year. But beyond that, we only have that one new game to play, that one new sim game. We're not getting the new Jam or Street on the side as well. No choice between Live and 2K anymore. So yeah, it's if we are maudlin about it, listeners, it's because we know how good we had it when we had so much choice.
Yeah, and it's such a fresh experience too. Maybe you've been playing NBA 2K for a little bit too long, or NBA Live for a little bit too long, and you want kind of a, like a different pace, maybe a different gameplay style and all that stuff. Boom, shoot over to Shootout.
Yeah,
pun intended. Go over to NBA Inside Drive. You know what? You want to mix it up, and maybe you want more fast-paced, loose, arcade action. Let's jump over to NBA Street. Let's jump over to NBA Jam. All of that, like the bevy of options. I'm just sad. I'm looking at it and I'm just sad. But the cool thing is that I found out a way to get the games that I have for PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox. I found out a way to record those in pretty high quality on, using an HDMI converter for the consoles to go along with my Elgato, and capture some cool footage from those games and record my sessions and share those with the community. So that's been incredibly motivating for me and super exciting. And I think people are really enjoying that footage from games that are not NBA Live and NBA 2K, something a little bit different.
Well, as I've said before, I grew up on NBA Live. I played a lot of that over the years, quite obviously, and did check out other games and spend some time with them, and certainly had NBA Jam and Street were my arcade games of choice for years on the side with NBA Live. But I spent most of my time with NBA Live, less time with other games, which is why it's been so rewarding to collect them and go back now and check them out and see what I've been what I was missing back in the day. But a lot of people, for as popular as Live and 2K were, those were the games that a lot of people were saying, I played a lot of Shootout or Inside Drive. Those were my games. That's why people are loving seeing that those clips that you're posting. And it's great that you were able to find that hardware to do that, because I know you had a bit of trouble at the start getting that to work properly.
Yeah, it's not easy to, get PS2 and the original Xbox or PlayStation and whatnot to look right in a recording setting, like to be able to share it on YouTube, to be able to share it on Twitter and whatnot. So what I ended up doing is I bought PS2 to HDMI and Xbox to HDMI converters. And I also bought the M Classic, which I'm sure you've heard about. It's actually pretty expensive. And it did a great job for Xbox. It doesn't work very well for the PS2, but it did really well for Xbox. But what I was able to do is hook up the HDMI cable to that converter, one end to the converter, one end to my Elgato, and I was able to record. Just like I do on, using my Elgato on my PS4 or PS5, etc. And I can save replays. I can do a full session of recording, all of that stuff. And I have some other tools to kind of remaster the footage. Like I use Adobe Premiere Pro in order to smooth out smooth it out from 30 FPS to 60 FPS. So to convert it to 60 FPS. I have Movavi Video Suite, which I know you've fallen in love with.
Of course. Yes.
in order to, maybe change some of the brightness or contrast or sharpen up the image in order to make it as close to as it's supposed to look, like the way it looks on the console and whatnot. And I'm just really enjoying recording the footage, revisiting the games, and sharing that with the community.
And we do want to help people run these games themselves, especially on PC. I've been doing that recently. I've been troubleshooting some of those games. We played a game with Live 95 PC, managed to get the controllers calibrated properly in DOSBox, because by default, with the default joystick setting for timing, it actually doesn't let you calibrate it. It just spins around, as you know well, because we tried to calibrate it before. I looked that up and found that setting can help, and it certainly did. And also been troubleshooting some issues with Live 2001 PC, where there's a conflict between my Logitech gaming keyboard and mouse and the Logitech controller. And in fact, it's not just Logitech. It's even on my laptop, it's detecting the inbuilt keyboard as a gamepad. So, and it's only Live 2001. So there are some issues with some of those PC releases, but there is a lot we can do to troubleshoot them, to run them on modern hardware and modern operating systems. We're still working a few things out to really get that optimal experience, but we do want to get those guides to you and put them on YouTube and in the NLSC forum and our wiki and whatnot. But man, is it so much fun to revisit these games, Derek. This is why we're doing it so often.
So yeah, when we revisited NBA Live 95 earlier, the PC version, we used the definitive roster for that game, and that includes the end of the season 94-95 rosters. So it has Jordan and it has Barkley. And I think the play of the game, I think you would agree, was a spin move by Jordan on the perimeter, and then Barkley met him at the rim, and Jordan did like a 360 poster dunk on Charles Barkley, knocking him over, and Barkley gets up and does that whole shaking the head thing because basically knocked out by MJ on that dunk. Yeah, that was really fun. But remember I talked to you about possibly doing like a small segment every now and then, called D's Deals. This time I want to focus on eBay. And I want to tell you some of the deals you can get on the 1990s NBA Lives for PC and for PlayStation, all the way up to NBA Live 2000. So 95 to 2000. So here are some of the deals. Now, what I'm going to give you mostly are complete in-box deals, because I know that's what most collectors want, right? They want the cover art, they want the manual, and they want the disc. So here are some of the deals, Andrew, that I found on eBay. So we're going to start with PC. And remember, once again, this is all eBay. NBA Live 95 for the PC, complete. Manual, cover art, disc, great condition, $19.99. Not a bad deal. It's not a bad deal for the first NBA Live game. NBA Live 96, PC, complete, $11, disc only, $4. NBA Live 97 PC, complete, $3.49. NBA Live 98 PC, complete, $2.49. That's a hell of a deal for one of their best releases. NBA Live 99 PC, complete, $10, disc only, $4. NBA Live 2000 PC, disc only, $6.71, complete, $13.99. Those are some excellent deals on PC versions of NBA Live, because those were the best versions of those games.
Those are some incredible prices, and none of them are bids. They're all buy now.
That's all buy now.
Wow.
I made sure that there was none of those were bids. All buy it now options.
So obviously, if you have to order from the States and you're outside the States, as I am, United States that is, obviously, it may be more expensive with shipping and whatnot and conversions, but that's still pretty good. That you save a lot of money on that, because there's a lot of people, I've seen much more expensive prices trying to gouge buyers and collectors with much more expensive prices for complete in box for those games. So those are some great deals, D.
Right, no, 100%. I didn't include shipping, but yeah, for base prices, that's pretty good. And some of those releases are the long boxes, right? Like remember the NBA 2000 long box? How great is that?
It takes up a lot of space on the shelf or in storage, but man, it's worth it. They're very cool.
Right, but when I say complete, too, it doesn't mean it's always going to be the long box. It means that it may just be a jewel case with the correct cover art and the manual. And I consider that complete. And I think you would agree. If you have the manual, you have the original case or the cover art, and you have the disc, I would consider that complete. So I wanted to move over now to PlayStation. So people that don't want to play on PC, or, they don't have a PC for gaming, etc. Here are some of the PlayStation deals on those same titles. Obviously not NBA Live 95 because that wasn't released for PlayStation. So NBA Live 96 to NBA Live 2000. NBA Live 96 complete, $8.59. NBA Live 97 complete, $3. NBA Live 98 complete, $3.49. NBA Live 99 complete, $3. NBA Live 2000 complete, $4.50. So, if you really wanted to, start collecting, or, maybe you were missing a few of those titles and whatnot, and you wanted to pick them up quickly and the shipping and handling wasn't too bad, those are some crazy deals.
And that's what you have to do. If you want to collect and retro game and you don't have those in your collection, you haven't built up a crazy collection like Derek and I, then keep an eye on eBay. Look at Amazon, certainly, but eBay, you can get some great deals when people are just trying to get rid of stuff. The bubble is kind of burst. It goes up and down. It fluctuates with retro games, and it depends on the genre, the games in question. But as we've said before, apart from the rare collectibles and the occasional unscrupulous seller trying to gouge you, most of them aren't rare collectibles. There's more of some of them in circulation than others, so some prices will vary. The college games tend to be a bit more expensive. But NBA Live, NBA 2K, the annual releases that there's plenty of, 20 years of them, you can get some of the classics at really good prices. So, yeah, keep an eye on eBay.
And there's so much replay value with those games, right? Because we're not talking about, like, Double Dribble. And I'm not trying to crap on Double Dribble because I spent hundreds of hours, maybe thousands, back in the day playing.
It's kind of shallow.
But there's no season mode, right? There's no season mode. There's no stats accumulation and stuff. What we're talking about here are games that you can play seasons on, right? In the case of NBA Live 2000, you can have legends, all of that stuff. So there's more options, the newer games, obviously, the ones we talked about, they have to create a player feature, all of this stuff. There's more content in those games. So it's definitely something where you can spend a lot of hours playing them and starting seasons and all of that stuff. I wanted to also mention that the community had a couple big pickups. And shout out to Nate and Roger, the NBA Live 2001 legends. Roger told me that he picked up NBA Shootout 2004 because he was watching my videos and whatnot on it, and it looked good. He bought that off of eBay for $8. So I think that's a pretty good deal for Shootout 2004. That was the last release of the Shootout series, at least with that title, because then they skipped 2005 and then it moved over to NBA 06. So good on them, and I really hope that they love that game. I think Shootout 2004, you've seen the gameplay that I posted. I think that's a game that Nate and Roger could sink their teeth into and have a good time on.
Yeah, I'd like to play that one because that series wasn't released in PAL regions. And, of course, I'm in a PAL region, Australia. So, that's one of the reasons why I couldn't get it. And that is something also to note about some of those older games. When I was trying to collect NBA 2K2, I didn't realize, until I looked into it a little bit more, that it was only in the US and Japan, NTSC and NTSC-J releases. So there's no PAL release for PS2, that is, of NBA 2K2. But I did find, to that point, the Japanese version of Live 2002 with MJ on the cover. That's what led me to that on an eBay search. So it wasn't a fruitless search after all.
I mean, we could technically play NBA Shootout 2004 on my PS2 emulator. I mean, it does have the graphical glitches and whatnot, which is why I've been recording and playing off of the console and whatnot. But we can definitely connect and play on that sometime so you can get a feel for it. I think it's a fun game. They did utilize right stick dribbling and right stick triple threat. So not as good as NBA Live, but it's there and it's useful and whatnot. I think you could tell by the video that I made of the Sonics versus the Clippers. You could tell I was doing right stick moves in that video. So I'm really happy they picked that up, and I love their videos that they've been posting lately for Live 2004 and Live 2001. So keep it up, guys. Another great pickup from the basketball gaming community. Not sure if you know about this one. He did just recently post about it. At B-Ball Video Games, friend of the show, contributor to the top 10. I've connected with him a ton of times on Parsec and whatnot. Always fun. He got I'm jealous. He got Lakers versus Celtics in the NBA playoffs, the DOS version, the one that I got, the floppy disk version, full in box for $82.
That's fantastic.
On eBay. That is absolutely a steal, because it's the full box with Kareem taking the hook on it. I believe it looked like it came with the manual. It looked like it was just totally complete. And you've seen those prices on those. We've seen them go for over $1,000 on eBay. Yeah. So the fact that he got it for that price is a steal. He told me in our chat that he was bidding against somebody on it, and he thought the person he was bidding against might have been me. And I told him, no, it's not me. I mean, I'm happy to have the floppy disk right now. Maybe sometime down the road, I'll get the full in-box version. But yeah, I am a crazy buyer like that. So I see why he said that.
And of course, back in the day, a lot of people did throw out the boxes. I mean, I always kept my Super Nintendo and original Nintendo boxes. Some of them are not in the best condition anymore. But for the games that I bought new at the time, I always kept the boxes. But as I understand it, a lot of people did throw them away.
Yeah, I think the thing is that when you're younger, you're not looking, at least this way, the way it was with me. When you're younger, you're not looking at these as collectibles, right? What you're looking at them at is how fast can I get them in the console, and how long can I play them?
True.
Like, that's really what. And then when you get older and you start wanting to, revisit them and share the footage and all of that stuff. And, maybe you're a little bit wiser as well and everything. You appreciate those little things a little bit more. So, for example, NBA Fast Break 98. It has that cover with Pippen on it, right? And it's the Bulls versus the Jazz. I never really appreciated it as much when I was younger, but I appreciate it now. I love having that cover because Jordan's hidden behind Adam Keefe.
Yes.
In the cover, because they didn't have the license for Jordan. He's guard number 98 in that game. And so they strategically, for the cover art, had to use a picture where Jordan is hidden. So you can tell.
How difficult is that? Like, to find that from not, well, he's playing 38, 40 minutes a game in the playoffs. To find a photo of the Bulls, of a Bulls versus Jazz finals photo that doesn't have MJ in it, at least in the background. I mean, to not even have to blur him up that he's hidden behind Adam Keefe, as you said, that's they really worked hard to find that one.
Yeah, and you can tell it's Jordan. You can see his arm. you can see, like, I think you can even see part of, like, his bald head. Like, you can it's him. But yeah, well, that's why I love having this stuff now, right? And I love looking at the CD promotion, like the art on the back of the CD, and then the words that they chose, like on the back of NBA Fast Break 98, they're promoting that wow, you can play a full season with full stat tracking, right, for that game. So yeah, I love it, and I love being a collector now. And every time I do get a game, I do try to get, as long as it's affordable and reasonable, I do try to get like complete in box with the cover art and the manual.
I've just actually pulled NBA Fast Break 98 out of the drawer near me, and yes, once you look at it, once you see it, it's so obvious that it's MJ, and you can't unsee it once you've seen it on the cover of that shot. But they did the best they could, and it's quite impressive. And NBA Full Court Press, that's a game that I know you've recently picked up. I got that working on Windows 10. I still need to get it working with sound. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I didn't realize that it was going to install natively on Windows 10, but it's obviously a 32-bit program, so it does. So that was cool to realize. We'll get the sound troubleshooted, but that's an interesting one to revisit as well. And once we get that working properly, I'd love to post some clips. I showed you some clips. I did capture them, but without sound, there's not quite the same effect. But we'll get that working, and yeah, of course, the great commentary of Kevin Calabro in that game.
Yeah. So what people don't realize is NBA Full Court Press, which I believe was released in 1995.
96. It's for the
96.
It's for the 97 season, and it's got the updated logos, but it's got 1996 rosters. It's kind of like the old school Lakers versus Celtics, etc., where it's got last year's rosters, and NBA Showdown up to NBA Showdown, where it's got last year's rosters, but it's got the current. It's set in the current season, but with last year's rosters, basically. No rookies, no Shaq, no MJ, no Barkley, etc.
Well, that's funny because, so it's 1996. Basically, that was released by Microsoft. They were the publisher. So that was, in reality, kind of the first NBA Inside Drive, NBA Full Court
Yeah.
Press.
Oh, yeah.
And Kevin Calabro, of course, was the commentator for the NBA Inside Drive series. So that makes perfect sense. So yeah, you shot me over a link once I showed interest in it of an eBay deal where it was about $5, and I picked it up immediately. I just went on eBay, signed in, and purchased it. So that's on the way. But as far as the audio issues go on NBA Full Court Press, it looks like you're not the only one. I looked up some gameplay footage, and a couple people uploaded gameplay, but of course they had no audio. So I don't think anybody's figured that out yet.
Yeah, it's something to do with DirectX and the old Direct Sound. It's because it will work with sound on a virtual machine, on a virtual Windows machine in VMware, but it does crash because of the resolution. I was originally going to fire up my virtual machine and just get some screenshots, because I wanted some screenshots for a future article to get that from the virtual machine. But then I thought, you know what, I'll try and install it on Windows 10 natively, and it worked. But of course, the sound didn't work. So I'll see if I can do it. I mean, I've kind of figured out the issue with NBA Live 2001 and gamepads. So I do work in IT, obviously. So if I can't figure that out, then either there's no solution or I need to change careers. But no, it's great to be able to play that, and we'll keep working on it. But if nothing else, you and I can hop on and have a session together.
I think that's a game we would have fun playing, judging by the footage, like the way the game mechanics work and whatnot, and the cool presentation and everything. I think we would have a lot of fun playing that. I would rather, obviously, it have audio if we were going to play it, especially because I'd like to record it and share it with the community and whatnot. So keep me posted on, if you figure that out.
And once again, once we figure out some of these optimal ways to run these old games and ways that we can share that with the community and put together some full guides, we'll definitely do that. Some written guides on the NLSC and in our forum, and of course some videos on YouTube as well. So we want to share that with the community. Obviously, you can connect with us on Parsec, as you do so often, Derek, with members of our community, and it's great that we're building up that community. And of course, King J Mace is doing the same thing. Shout out as always to King J Mace. But we also want to put it as resources so people can play by themselves and set it up, because if you do have a bit of technical savvy, it doesn't take too long to do. Sometimes you might need to have, if you are using a virtual machine, for example, you might need to have an old copy of Windows on hand. So trying to find ways that the people can do it as quickly and easily as possible. But we'll keep working on it, and once we've figured out the best way to optimize those old games and have them playing properly and with sound when possible, and get them working with different controllers and whatnot, we'll put that information out there for you, because we'd love more people to do this, because retro basketball gaming, as we've said before, Derek, is filling that gap that's there because there is no alternate game on the market.
I feel like it's making a comeback a little bit over the last year. I think retro gaming is more in, and I'm seeing some of those channels that post the retro classic basketball video game and retro basketball video game gameplay doing very well right now.
Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, MBA-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at MBA-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community. But Derek, you said retro is back in, and I absolutely agree. But to that point, NBA 2K seems to agree as well, because NBA 2K23, the next-gen version that is, with MyNBA, has just announced in this week's developer blog that it's going to have what they're calling MyNBA Eras. And we can go back and start as early as 1983 in the Magic versus Bird era. There's the Jordan era, the Kobe era. The modern era is basically the traditional franchise experience with current rosters. But this is adding something to the game that we've talked about before as this pipe dream of being able to go back to different eras and start way before the current season. And they've done it.
You ever wonder if John Joust Sming is in their ear about this and being like, hey, listen, this is what the UBR had. This this is what the URB had and everything, and you could play seasons from the 80s and 90s and 2000s and whatnot. And this is really something that we should put in NBA 2K at some point, because that's what this kind of is if you really think about it. They're allowing you to start your seasons, like you stated, for example, in the Bird and Magic era, let's say 1983, play through a full season. Like, I don't know how many people they've added. I don't know players they've added. I don't know how many fakes are going to be there. All that stuff we'll know on release, obviously, but that's going to be one of the first things that I look at to see all the new teams and how that works and everything. But essentially what it does is it allows you to play a full season of 1980, 83, 84, and then continue forward. And I don't know if they're going to be including draft classes for the new years, or the community is going to have to make those, which they'll jump on that fast, by the way. Draft classes for the years following and whatnot. But I think it's a very smart and strong move by NBA 2K. And once again, if anybody wants to get into the space, this is something that they're going to be competing with. And that's tough, right? Especially if NBA 2K did it right. From all the screenshots that I'm seeing and the videos that I'm seeing displaying NBA 2K23 and how this works, they have the presentation down to a T as far as like the 2002, the Kobe era with the ESPN presentation, the NBA on CBS presentation from the 80s, the NBA on NBC presentation from the 90s, all of that stuff. Of course, they're not using NBC or ESPN. They're just making all of the graphics in game look just like their presentation, just without basically giving them credit for it. Like, that's really what it is. And I used the example actually when I was talking to somebody about this, when they displayed those screenshots. It reminds me of Vanilla Ice, the song Ice Ice Baby. For the music that plays during that, he sampled the song Under Pressure, and he changed the song ever so slightly and then didn't give credit to the original artist, David Bowie, right? And then what happened? He got sued and he lost a ton of money in that suit. So I don't think NBA 2K is going to get sued, but you have to admit that ESPN presentation, the NBA on NBC, NBA on CBS, that is basically to a T.
Well, first of all, Ice Ice Baby, the greatest Vanilla Ice song. In second place, of course, Go Ninja Go Ninja Go from the Ninja Turtles sequel, Ninja Turtles movie. But yes, it's very much in the style of NBA on CBS and then subsequently NBC, ESPN, etc. They've definitely got that style. The overlays is definitely more than inspired by those historical eras. It's great to see. There is so much accuracy there. There's also going to be those filters. We were talking about it with the Jordan Challenge. Oh, this isn't going to be in my NBA or my league. Well, it's not going to be in my league, unfortunately, for current gen and PC users. But it is going to be in my NBA. It's going to change throughout the years. I just looked into it. They are going to have the default roster, and also there are going to be year-by-year draft classes. But as you said, they're not going to get all the players. We're pretty sure that Charles Barkley and Reggie Miller are not going to be in their respective draft classes, unfortunately. But there's also still going to be that customization there, so you can add them. And the people that are very talented at editing rosters and draft classes will be able to fix those and add missing content. Again, what we could do on PC, which is why we'd love to have it on PC, but unfortunately not going to happen. And it's actually going to evolve through the years. We're not just the presentation, but also we're going to see historical rule changes that come in when they came in real life. There'll still be that sandbox, so you can choose not to change those rules, or if you want, or you can add them as those changes earlier. There's also going to be automatic rebranding for teams with changing their logos and their jerseys and whatnot. You can also overwrite that, or indeed if you want to go back and add 36 teams, have 36 teams in the league with expansion in 1983, you can. So there's going to be this authentic year-by-year experience, obviously with some missing players and whatnot. And they're accounting for most of the jerseys and courts. Some of the courts look very authentic. That old Clippers court, for example, is the LA Sports, LA Memorial Arena, that one? Something like that?
I believe so.
Yes.
It's something like that.
They've even got some of the old sponsors and their old sponsor logos on the dorners and whatnot. So they've gone to painstaking detail for the first year. As people have brought up on Twitter, as the years go by, they might add more years, or to the point where you can start pretty much at any year you want. That's a pipe dream, possibly. We'll see what happens there in the future. But for now, we have these 4 distinct eras to start with. The players, the authentic teams, to a point. There's going to be some filler for sure, but be able to start in those different years and have the evolving branding. We've seen the Spalding ball in some of the Jordan Challenge screenshots. So they've gone into a lot of detail with that. And as with the Jordan Challenge, they're talking about rewriting the AI and the sliders and whatnot to change the style of gameplay through the years. So on paper, this sounds awesome. This is something we never thought would happen. We said the same thing about the Jordan Challenge back in the day, and this actually has me pretty hyped, Derek, as you can probably tell, because this is something that we've talked about. We didn't think would happen because of licensing and feasibility, technical feasibility and whatnot. But this is the first time in a long time that they've really innovated the single-player experience.
If I really like the gameplay, it's something that I'm going to jump all over.
Same.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it really comes down to how it feels on the sticks, and, have they loosened up the gameplay, and have they limited the frustrations that we've had in the recent past, gameplay wise and whatnot. I think it's an amazing move by them. This is a big content update. I think they were due for one, because they haven't had a major content update when it comes to classic team content. I would say probably since NBA 2K16, from when they added all of those new teams from past the 2000s. Like the 07-08 Rockets, the 07-08 Celtics, the 12-13 Heat, etc. They had that huge update in 2K16. This seems like the biggest update since then. And like I stated, if there were any rumblings at any point of NBA Live coming back or anybody else trying to come into the space, this is just another thing that a competitor will have to try to overcome and, win consumers over. So it's a home run, honestly, for 2K. And if people don't like online play in NBA 2K23, or, they're still frustrated with it, or, they don't want to put money in on that scene, this gives them that content that, you don't have to be online for. Right? This is something that they can jump into an era of their choice, and they can just play without the annoying gambling mechanics, without the online frustration, the connectivity issues, all of that stuff. So this is more offline content that people are going to be able to truly sink their teeth into. And I think, like I said, it's a great move by NBA 2K.
The depth, when you just go down, I'm just going down my recap, which you can check out on the NLSC, MBA-live.com, of course. Just the amount of detail, attention to detail that's gone into this. Finance is changing over time, so salaries will expand and the salary cap will change. There's also the division alignment and realignment, which is going to be automatic. So it's going to go from those 4 divisions to 6 automatically, and just fix all that with the schedule and the team alignment. Authentic All-Star jerseys, and then in the years that players were wearing their original team jerseys in the All-Star game, that's going to be accounted for. 2 referees to begin with, and they add the third one in the late 80s, I believe it was. So, yes, there's all this level of detail, and as you said, if any competitor comes into the space, you look at what NBA Live was doing with their franchise mode towards the end of the last generation was just so pathetic, quite frankly. The whole quote-unquote streamlined franchise experience. As soon as I said that in an article, as soon as I saw the word streamlined in the blurb for NBA Live 18, I think it was, I thought, yeah, it's going to be crap. And it was.
You can't come into this space right now that weak.
No.
You can't come into this space right now light on content. You can't come into the space light on innovation.
You can't do the bare minimum. And Live is kind of been like the bare minimum on last generation. Yeah. It was it had the essentials there, but 2K has gone so far beyond the essentials, even before bringing in MyNBA Eras, that yes, gameplay is paramount. Said that so many times, no disagreement there. But if you don't have those deep modes, when the other game does, when you don't even have a fraction of that depth, you just can't come into the space that way. So if they return, they need to bring it with the modes as well. Said that before so many times. And we won't go into what NBA Live needs to do, because we've covered that in depth. But yes, you see something like this, and I actually had the same thought. I thought, well, if Live is going to come back at some point, and we hope it does, and we think there's a chance, then this is what it's competing with, right?
Right. I think 2K has obviously the connections right now, which is huge.
Yes.
Jordan, with the league, Jordan, the best players outside of Barkley and Miller and whatnot. They have the sponsors. They have, they have pretty much everybody they need in order to get all of these, this art in place, all the permissions, all of the, all of the likeness rights, all of that stuff. Like, they have all of those connections, and that's a tough battle, right, for anybody trying to come into this space. That's to be able to compete with that is incredibly tough. And I also want to point out they obviously have some of the right minds on the job too. I mentioned Jav Sming earlier, John, but there's people obviously at 2K that are thinking outside the box, and then they're looking at the modding community and what they're doing, and they're thinking about UBR style stuff. They're still thinking about retro and the classic NBA and how they can, get people playing that content. They're always thinking about how to add new content to their game. They obviously have people on the art team that know how to implement these new pieces to the game and whatnot. So yeah, I'm very impressed at what I've been seeing as far as, the way they're trying to innovate, add new stuff. Because let's be honest, both of us know this with NBA 2K23, they still, because they're the only player in the space right now, they probably still could have released a game that was mostly like 2K22 with just a couple small updates, and they'd still make 10 million sales.
Oh, sure.
Right. But what they're thinking about is, how do we future-proof NBA 2K? Right? How do we make it so nobody wants to come into this space, and if they do, they're going to get crushed? So they have a lot of smart people on the job, let's put it that way.
And of course, Leftos is one of them, pioneering a lot of ideas for the franchise experience because he's very passionate about that. So I imagine that he's definitely had a hand in this, without a doubt. And when we had him on the podcast, as you recall, last year, he was talking about his the blue sky list they have, as they call it, there at 2K, at Visual Concepts. Those pie in the sky ideas that they have, but they want to try and find a way to implement long term. And this is clearly one of them. They're in the sky right now.
Yeah, and I think this another important thing is hopefully they do it right. Like, I hope they update tendencies, ratings, and it's not just art and everything. It's like the game is fun and the players play right and they play to their likeness for the most part and everything. It's not just the fact that they did an update, it's that they're paying tribute to decades that often get crapped on today.
Yes,
by our youth.
I love that. Yeah.
And I love that. I love the fact that they're paying tribute to the Magic and Bird era, the Jordan 90s era, the early 2000s, mid 2000s Kobe era, all of that stuff. Like, I think that's in sore need right now. I think that, with the J.J. Redicks and the Nick Wrights of the world and the Shannon Sharps and Skip Bayless and the Max Kellermans and and the Kendrick Perkins, the list goes on. All of these, media members or former players with sometimes millions of followers, and they get millions of impressions over time, calling, these players from these eras plumbers, or just crapping on the eras, or saying that they're not as good, all of this stuff. I think our youth needs this, to be honest with you. I think our youth and our young adults in this world need this content. And I think that, between the Jordan Challenge and the Eras mode within MyNBA, all of that stuff, I think that it's going to be, hopefully, a fitting tribute to, past players and teams.
Well, you look at how we learned about those past eras when we were growing up, because pretty much all of the documentaries that were coming out and the specials and whatever that were coming out on VHS back in the day would talk about the history of the game. So we would get to see Russell and Wilt and even Mikan, what footage there is of the 40s and 50s. We
never crapped on those guys, Andrew. That's the thing. I think you remember it too. We never did. I was around basketball people all the time in my teens, young and my super young adult years. I was constantly around basketball people. I played for my high school team, for years. I was in adult leagues immediately after, constantly playing, multiple games per week, all of that stuff with all the young people at the time. My friends and I were obsessed with basketball, and I don't remember one instance, not one, of us completely trashing Julius Erving right?
Exactly.
Or Bill Russell, or Bill Walton, or Wilt Chamberlain, or anything like that. If anything, when they did get brought up, we talked about them fondly, or like legends of the game and everything. It is crazy what has happened today.
It is, and again, I do think that having those documentaries that came out on VHS and later DVD did educate us about the history of the game. We also learned from the current NBA from the latest game as well, but those from video games, that is. But now video games can also fill in where those documentaries that aren't coming out on VHS. And it's a shame, because they could still do that on YouTube. They could still be putting together these documentaries and putting them out there, past and present. And it's a shame, because you saw some of the comments when The Last Dance came out, and people calling it propaganda and don't watch this, it's just old head propaganda and whatnot. That's going to be a very stubborn attitude to fight against. But still, with this content in the game, with more and more retro content in NBA 2K, as you said, 10 million plus sales a year, a lot of people playing it, a lot of younger gamers playing it, could play with these legends, go back and see what it was like, and think, hey, this is actually pretty cool. Those are pretty cool logos and the branding, and wow, Sean Kemp, so and things like that. Just to throw a couple of quick examples out there. So this could be a teaching tool, as well as paying tribute to the past, which is sorely needed, as you said. Very fun for us, for those of us that remember those eras and would love to replay them with modern technology. Yeah, I think this is going to be great for the game. And I'm really glad that they've finally found a way to implement it.
Well, I will say this. Now I'm going to get negative. Started off the show negative. Here we go. We're negative again. I am not confident, though, that they're going to make these teams accurate, these players accurate, and that they're going to give them their due diligence. Because we've seen the way they've treated their retro content in the past. Their classic team content, their all-time team content. I'm worried still about copy and paste. I'm still worried about having players like Dirk being incredibly slow, going up and down the floor. I can only imagine if they did that with Dirk in the early 2000s, what they're going to try to do to players from the 80s. I don't believe that in the past they've had the right minds on that content or paid the appropriate attention to detail to that content. When you're making those teams, you got to be educated about the players in that era. You know that. You have to be educated about how they played, their strengths, their weaknesses, how athletic they were, all of that stuff, what their strong points were, all of that. And 2K in the past has shown me that the people that work on those rosters, that do those ratings and tendencies and everything, they are not the right people to be working on them. It's true. So, yeah, I'm going into this excited, but I'm also going into it cautious.
I mean, that's a valid concern, because we pointed out just a fraction of the issues. Again, that Twitter thread you had, the video pointing out just 1%, if that, of some of the issues in the, not just current players, but retro players in particular. So that is
right. Glenn Rice with a 0 3-point tendency.
That is definitely a concern.
Jason Williams with a zero flashy pass tendency. Like stuff like that. Like the right people weren't on the job for that. The right minds weren't on the job, and that is, if at worst, it's pure laziness.
Yes.
Total laziness. Yes. And that's, excuse me, not at worst. At best, it's total laziness. Yeah. So it's unfortunate. But yeah, I'm going into it pretty cautious.
No, I do think that's sensible, and that is a concern, that if you don't get that right, I mean, you can adjust the sliders all you want and rewrite the AI. That is very important, of course, to get that authentic retro gameplay. That is the way the style of the play has evolved over the years, or changed, or whatever nomenclature you want to use. Yes, you do need to get that right, but also if the individual players, if their tendencies, their ratings aren't accurate, then the effect is not going to be there. Hopefully they have gone to that detail. A couple other things for the current NBA. They've added the Commissioner's Cup to MyWNBA. They've updated the WNBA playoff bracket to reflect reality. Team rivalry logic has been revamped for more intense gameplay. When rivals meet, there's going to be more physicality and aggressiveness. The calendar on the MyNBA and MyWNBA screen is a bit bigger, includes more relevant information at a glance. And of course, the new East and West Conference Most Valuable Player Award that was introduced just this past season is also now reflected in the game as well. It's kind of funny, actually, that we're getting all this stuff after the NBA 75th anniversary. I mean, it makes sense that we're getting it in the 2K23, with it being a celebration of Jordan, with the return of the Jordan Challenge, and obviously the MyNBA Eras. But I mean, this stuff takes time, obviously. But it's funny that after the landmark celebration of the NBA at 75, the NBA 75th, that it's not coming in that game for that season.
Yeah, I think it's just the amount of updates that they put into the game require also a lot of communication, right? A lot of reach out, a lot of, contacting their connections and whatnot to get permissions and sign contracts and all of that stuff. I think that what they're implementing this year takes a lot more than 1 year, right?
Yes.
So in my opinion, this is something that they've been working on for a couple of years at minimum, as far as doing the outreach, getting all the bones in place in order to make this possible. So it's not surprising to me. I think the timing is a little bit off, but honestly, is there one person out there that really cares about the timing being off? No, they're just super excited to see this stuff, being added to the game, and people want to get into it. And I'll say again, I applaud 2K because this is an incredibly smart move. It's an incredibly smart business move. And I think that making it so it's available and not connected to online modes and all of that stuff, I think that it's incredibly fair to the consumer, because all of this MyNBA Eras, the Jordan Challenge, all of that stuff, that comes with no extra price tag, right? So it's just part of the base game. So I do applaud 2K for that.
And what have we been criticizing, and what have I been complimenting about 2K14, my career, that I've been enjoying so much? The fact that I can go back and play that years later. Years down the line, when the servers are shut off, MyNBA Eras are, presumably, still going to be there. So you can still go and go back and play those old seasons in a game that you still enjoy years later. There's going to be replay value in this game, much as there is in previous games before the real online revolution, for lack of a better word, when you had the Jordan Challenge and NBA's Greatest. You can go back and play those modes. It doesn't need the servers. So, yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's great that they're doing this for that offline single-player experience. And, of course, there's a multiplayer aspect to that. You can do multiplayer in franchise modes, in 2K's franchise modes, that is. And that's going to be there. They haven't mentioned that going away. I don't see why it would. But a lot of excitement there for MyNBA in the next-gen version of NBA 2K23, rightfully so. It's definitely got me hyped, getting me looking forward to the game and hoping the gameplay is up to scratch. I said that last week when we were talking about the Jordan Challenge. This has only piqued my interest further. But we should cover, Derek, that the PC version and last-gen version, current-gen version, whatever you want to say, is still going to have My League. It's not going to have this. So there is some disappointment within our community that it's not going to get it, and kind of a feeling that it's a bit irrelevant if you don't have... well, it is. If you don't have the next-gen version, you're not going to be able to enjoy this. And we were talking about it before we started recording, or a couple of days ago, actually, about when it was announced, that what are they going to do for current gen? And I said, well, hopefully they at least have some of the retro teams and the players available to play with. And you said you don't think that's going to happen. And when I thought about it, yeah, probably not. And that's a damn shame that it's going to miss out on that content. Because it's one thing to miss out on the expansion of the mode, because they are going to put more attention into the next-gen version, obviously. But to not even get the retro plays, the new retro plays that they're going to hopefully add, is going to be a huge blow to current gen.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my biggest problems with it is the fact that the majority of 2K gamers are still on PS4 gen. They're still on PS4, Xbox One, and PC gen. And I think that I showcased it in a comment to somebody else of what PlayStation 5's sales have been since they launched, and Xbox Series X. And there are far more people worldwide that are still on last gen than they are on, PS5 Series X gen. And also I want to make another point too, is, we haven't maxed out what the capabilities and what can be included in PS4, Xbox One, and PC games. So let's just make that clear. As far as we've seen what modders have been able to do with the PC version of NBA 2K22, the database isn't full. The consoles can still, retain more information, all of that stuff. So I just want to throw that out the window right there. I think that the priorities were clearly on next gen. I think that they're trying to push more people to that version. I think that that's the goal obviously of the console maker, but also of 2K, the company. So, visual concepts and whatnot. And yeah, it's too bad. It really is too bad because the PC gamers, the modders in the NLSC community and whatnot, how much would they have jumped over that NBA Eras mode?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely,
it would have been ridiculous. But I do feel bad for some of the people that submit highlights to me. For example, Sweet Jones, OTF, he loves classic hoops, right? He uses the retro teams. He recently started a retro season and all of that. But I believe he, judging by the highlights that he sends in, I'm pretty sure he's still on PS4 gen. So, like, I feel bad that he's not going to be able to sink his teeth into that content until, he finds a way to upgrade to, PS5 gen.
And these consoles have not been easy to get your hands on.
No, they're not. That's the thing. They're still not. Depending on what part of the world you're in, there haven't been, PS5s available for some time. And whatnot. And, Series S has been more available overall for the Xbox Series, but Series X has still been hard for people to get their hands on. So this isn't the same situation as when we went from Xbox 360 to Xbox One and PS4. Those systems were more affordable at the time. The economy wasn't even close to in as bad shape. And the sales reflect that, as far as how well they did when, in 2013, when the console was first released, and then, 2014, and then, 2015 as well. So definitely not the same situation. It's apples and oranges to compare that transition.
And as far as technical feasibility, because people have asked why can't it be done on PC? And of course, as you said, it can be. The issue is time and effort. I mean, obviously, it's been something they've been working on for next gen, as you said, probably at least a couple of years to get this all in place. And they have talked before about how they're trying to get as much next gen stuff onto current gen as far as gameplay and content and my team, etc. So it's most likely. Well, it's most likely feasible, but the issue is getting the manpower, the sizable team to work on the current gen version, to rewrite everything to get the new MyNBA in the game. Because, and I say this, and I'm not trying to be condescending when I say it, but there are some people who don't really understand the nuts and bolts of game development, which is fine if you're not in the industry. And if I hadn't talked to people in the industry that have explained things to me and tried to do a bit of programming myself, I wouldn't have the small amount of knowledge that I do on the subject. But I do feel a lot of people are under the impression that you can just copy and paste code across from next gen to current gen, that you can just take my NBA and replace my league. But there's a lot of stuff you need to recode, to rewrite, to get that working. Now, could you do it? Sure. I mean, look at the way they've got cross-generation progression with my team. This stuff is possible. But do they have the amount of time? Do they have the inclination also to do that for my NBA, to get that into current gen? And even if they'd like to, they may not have the time or the resources, may not be able to justify the cost and the efforts and the time it takes to do it. So it is technically feasible, but there are other factors in play.
See, the thing is that it's pretty obvious that they have a big development team that works on PS4 gen, NBA 2K. Like, there's obviously a lot of resources still applied to that version. We've talked about it before, moving the commentary crew over from next gen to PS4, changing the gameplay ever so slightly to make it more similar, adding features that next gen has that, the PS4 gen doesn't have. All that stuff was done recently for like NBA 2K22 and whatnot. So there's obviously a big development team that works strictly on the PS4 version. So I am definitely not saying it's easy to do. I'm definitely not saying that code can be copied over like that effortlessly. I think that time, resources, priorities, and where they want to spend their money and where they want gamers to move, right? So that, I think that those are all things that factor in here. And I'm happy that they're bringing the Jordan Challenge over to PS4 gen.
Yes.
2K. I think that's a great move. I am hoping that it's fun and complete, and that some of the positive gameplay changes that are hopefully in NBA 2K23 next gen are in, the PS4 gen and whatnot. So that's a wait and see approach. But I want to say to our listeners, I know that there's people who are upset about this. They're not just forgetting about PC. They're not just forgetting about the PS4 gen, because they are clearly making a lot of updates and trying to mirror a lot of what's on next gen. It's just not everything is being moved over, right? And like I said before, not to keep harping on this, but my biggest sadness in this, my biggest frustration in it, is for the people that are still on PS4 gen that can't find or can't afford the new consoles, and they're going to be missing some of those content updates and whatnot. Because like I said, I still think the majority of gamers are on the PS4 gen.
Well, certainly a big bulk. I mean, it's got to be 50-50 at worst.
I think it's even more than that. I'll be honest with you. I think, judging by the sales that have actually gone out, the reported sales for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S, I would say that well more than half are still on the PS4 gen.
No, that's a great point. And to that point, hopefully they will at least get some of the content across. Because I'd hate to see some of those new historical players that are hopefully being added on next gen to account for the being able to start in those earlier seasons and play through to today. One would have to imagine they're adding a lot of new retro teams. Whether they're going to be playable outside of MyNBA, I have my doubts about that. I haven't seen that either way. I'd be very surprised if those rosters are available to play with in Play Now. That'd be fantastic if they were. I'd totally be about that if you could load up a retro roster in Play Now for exhibition play. If that's possible, then maybe there's going to be some of that content in current gen. I wrote an article about this, as I often do, that it's frustrating to see so many retro players exclusive to my team. And we've seen a lot of them. Like Rex Chapman, for example, is nowhere in the default rosters, not in the all-time Suns or Wizards/Bullets or any other teams that he played for, Hornets, at least when I last checked. But he is there in my team. Jeremy Lin is no longer on the 2012 Knicks, but he's there in my team. So they need to also clean up things like that as well. I really hope that they do. And if we can get as much on current gen as possible, then that's at least going to be something. But I understand people's disappointment, but obviously a lot of excitement as well. And it really is a cool feature. And I'm probably going to get a special edition this year, Derek, because I can't go past that Jordan cover.
Yeah, that Jordan cover is excellent, isn't it? I think they did a good job with the cover art overall, with the Devin Booker cover and the Jordan cover, all of that stuff. I think I haven't pre-ordered yet, but I'll probably be going for that as well.
I'm in the same boat. I'm probably going to pre-order in the next week or so. Unless you think we're shills, if you're not feeling what you're seeing, by all means, don't pre-order. It's going to be there. They're not going to run out of games, copies of the games.
You got to understand, Andrew and I are going to buy no matter what. Let's put it this way.
We're collectors.
99.999% of the time, if any basketball video game is released, no matter how small the developer, Andrew and I are going to buy it.
Exactly.
So that's just the way it is. And I'm not going to say unfortunately. I'm going to say fortunately, because we love our collections.
This is true. But if you're not a crazy collector, if you're not a content creator, and if you want to wait and see, then absolutely do that. We're not going to sit here and shill for any company. If you don't feel like pre-ordering, if it hasn't moved you, if it's not in your finances for whatever reason, do the smart thing, do the financially responsible thing, and wait and see if you would prefer. We're going to pre-order because we want to have it there on day one and ready to preload and pre-install, so we can start getting started on content and whatnot. With my physical copy this year, I'm going to do pickup. I'm not going to wait to the post like last year's debacle. I've learned my lesson on that one. So when I pre-order the physical copy, I'll be going to the store to pick that up, not have it posted to me, being on a Friday, of course. So yeah, learn my lesson there. But as far as pre-orders go, Derek, we're not going to shill.
No, absolutely not. But I am hoping that the game's good. Fingers crossed. If it's good, I'll spend a lot of time on it. You'll see a lot of highlights go up on my channel and on the NLSC YouTube. So I guess stay tuned for that.
Definitely. And once again, this was huge news for NBA 2K23. A lot of people talking about it on social media. So, Derek, it's time to open up the mailbag.
To the mailman. The pump fake. What an unbelievable dunk.
And My NBA Eras is the subject of this week's mailbag. Derek, what was the question you threw out there this week?
Basically, I kept it simple. Which era are you looking forward to playing the most?
So first up, we have Tino at Martino3 on Twitter. Hopefully we see the Pacers and Reggie show up, and maybe the Suns with Chuck. Then I will. And I must admit, Derek, I'm not optimistic about, as I said before, Reggie and Chuck showing up in the game.
No, I think they are stubborn. They're set in their ways with this, and they have every right to be. That's the way I look at it. So, I don't think we're going to see Reggie and Chuck. Hopefully the create a player feature within the game got some updates so you can make more accurate faces and do more sculpting and whatnot so people can make more accurate Reggie Millers and Charles Barkley's, because I think that overall, and it's not the community's fault, I think most of the created Barkleys and Millers are very underwhelming and don't really look like their real life counterparts. So I do have my fingers crossed that maybe there was a create a player feature update, but I doubt it.
And shout out to MJ Wizards here, because he made some fantastic creative players in his retro rosters.
Yeah, he did a bang up job. Like, I think he did the best he possibly could with the creative player feature. For example, J.R. Smith. I talked about it on one of the prior shows. His J.R. Smith is spot on.
Yes.
It looks like that looks like it could be a cyber face of J.R. Smith, like a real one and whatnot. And he's got the tattoos on there and everything. So yeah, it's definitely shout out to MJ Wizards for kind of just, making the best of it and doing the best he can with the features that he had.
Next up, we have Patrick Maloney at PMaloney1520 on Twitter. Going to start with the Magic versus Bird era, at least one season. I think I'll do multiple years starting in the Jordan era. And I can certainly relate to that, Derek. My preference is probably going to be to play the 90s, because that's where my nostalgia is, but it's going to be very tempting to go right back to the start, just to check it out, to see and to simulate a few seasons, if nothing else, but to go back and play that 1984 season, and starting in 1983, going through the 1984 finals, and see whether the what-if scenario was going to be Lakers versus Celtics, as in real life. And then, of course, you get the 84 draft and the great class there. Going to have to add Barkley with the customization tools, of course, but it's going to be very tough to go past at least checking out that early era. I mean, we want to do that just to see what they've added as far as the teams and the accuracy and how many roster players there are. But I think I'll spend most of my time in the Jordan era. But yeah, I'll also go back and check out the earliest one as well.
You know how much I love 80s basketball.
Of course.
Yeah, how much I was posting highlights on Twitter during a period last year. The 80s Blazers with Drexler and Kiki Vandeweghe, and the early 80s Clippers. One of the teams that is a huge what if team if they had all been healthy: Tom Chambers, Terry Cummings, and Bill Walton, etc. Like, I just absolutely love 80s basketball. So the era that I'm actually most excited to jump into first is the Magic Bird era, and then just kind of work my way up. I think that what's very important for the 80s era to be fun, not only just strong gameplay by default in the game, but for them to make those 80s teams play fast. 80s was a very high scoring era for the NBA, and it was very up and down. It was catch the board, grab the board and go, outlet and go, and teams pushing the pace and running it down your throat. And the league was full of great conditioned athletes in the 80s and great athletes in general. So I'm really hoping that they were able to capture that real 80s style, because we're not talking overall slow down basketball.
No.
Right? It should be incredibly fun, incredibly fast paced, like the 80s were. So fingers crossed on that.
Philly I'm 2002 at Philly I'm 2K on Twitter. I don't know which one exactly I'm the most excited for, but all the what ifs, you can do so much. Every era should be unique, with having new players in 2K, the new filters, rules, commentaries. And they said in the developer blogs, what-if scenarios played a big role in the whole concept of MyNBA Eras. So, yes, does Jordan go number one overall in the new 1984 draft and things like that? And do the same teams make the finals in the same years, and the draft results and the trades and everything, and creating those what-if scenarios and playing them? Yeah, that's a huge part of the appeal of this whole concept.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it on a recent podcast. Remember, we said, what if Grant Hill stayed healthy?
Yes.
Like stuff like that. There was talk about Derrick Rose, if he stayed healthy and all of that stuff. We were talking about that on a previous episode. So yeah, what ifs are a huge part of basketball. What if Sam Bowie were to be drafted and stay healthy, right? And how does that change the fate of the Portland Trailblazers? Because he was a hell of a player. Like, Sam Bowie was a really good player. But remember, during his career, he broke both of his legs at different times. So obviously that's going to set any player back. So yeah, I think that's great. I think that one of my responses to him on Twitter was that one thing that I'm super excited for is just all the new art, all the new faces that are going to be in the game, the team logos, the courts, the jerseys, really trying to feel that era, and whatnot while you're playing. Yeah, it's super exciting, and obviously the what ifs are exciting.
Popcorn Jones 77 at Popcorn Jones 77 on Twitter. I'm looking forward to playing the Magic Bird era. I'm really curious to see whether they capture the 80s style of play. I'm also curious to see how they implement it. Does this imply Tennessee's sliders will be more effective this year? And yeah, we were just talking about that. The importance of representing the style realistically, that 80s style of play, that up-tempo, high-scoring style. You definitely need to have those. The tendencies, the AI, the sliders need to be tuned to have that, to probably capture that. And it sounds like they're going for that, but again, it remains to be seen just how effective it will be.
That's going to be so important in the game playing the right way. I mean, it has to be mechanically strong, as the engine needs to be strong in the game by default, but those ratings and tendencies and whatnot and signature shots, if all of that stuff factors into the overall gameplay experience. So yeah, like I just stated, the 80s was a very fast-paced era, and I hope that they were able to capture that in its loose, fun basketball action, which is what the 80s were.
Darius Allen at DMAllen5 on Twitter. I'm looking forward to all the old eras. I'm an old school basketball lover. So yeah, it's definitely going to appeal to people like Darius and to us as well. And there's a lot of older people that still play games. I say older, we're still quite young in the grand scheme of things, but there's a lot of people that aren't late teens or teenagers, early 20s, Gen Z, that are playing these games, and this is really going to appeal to us.
Yeah, just look at the YouTube statistics for people who are watching these gameplay videos. Right, I was, during my days of posting NBA 2K17, when it was the new title and I was getting thousands of views on those videos, the age range that viewed my videos the most, I want to say, was early to mid 30s. So they're not just playing these games, they're searching out these games on the internet, on YouTube and whatnot, and on social media, and, checking out gameplay and, seeing what's new and, how people play these games and whatnot. Video games, this age range, when you say, like, I don't know, early, late 30s, mid 30s and lower, and even the early 40s and whatnot, we all grew up with these games. We grew up playing basketball video games, whether it was me with Double Dribble, or somebody, their first game was, say, NBA Showdown or NBA Live 95. So, all of us in that age group, in that age range, are actually lifetime gamers. We've had them our whole lives. So, there's a huge gamer base that is in that age range.
At _Gamer Simpson on Twitter, I'm about to destroy Mike's whole legacy. My NBA Eraverse about to be insane. Comments?
Well, I mean, he can't destroy Michael Jordan's legacy, so we can just move on from that.
I'm going to enhance MJ's legacy in mine, so that'll balance things out, I guess.
There you go. I mean, when I win a couple championships with Jordan with the Wizards, that will enhance his legacy.
And of course, Terry Hansen is the GOAT anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But
imagine Terry Hansen with prime Michael Jordan.
I mean, that's 10 championships in a row right there.
Right. Michael Jordan wouldn't have retired.
No.
Let's put it that way. He wouldn't have went to play baseball. He'd been like, listen, I got to win a couple more titles with Terry Hansen. I can't walk away from the game.
Renzo, at Lorenzo244 Life on Twitter. I'm starting with the 90s Jordan and Sonics and 2000s T-Mac and Kobe. Excellent choices, I would say, sir.
I mean, those Sonics, the early mid-2000s Sonics, are so fun in video games. In NBA 2K19 and me and Stildo 33's 94-95 season, I'm using the Sonics. with Sean Kemp, Gary Payton, Detlef Schrempf, Kendall Gill, and whatnot, Sharunas Marshall-Lonis off the bench, Sam Perkins, like super fun teams, throughout the 90s for the Supersonics. So great choice.
And you were just talking about MJ on the Wizards, and LaHarden James, at Harden43 on Twitter, says, I can't wait to play the 2000s with MJ on the Wizards. And obviously we're not going to get a Wizards Michael Jordan in the Jordan Challenge, but for authenticity's sake, starting in 2002 in the Kobe era, you got to have him on the Wizards. And
I love me some Wizards Jordan, Andrew.
Yes.
You know that.
I know.
Especially because, he was an MVP candidate for the first 50 games of the 01-02 season leading up to the All-Star break, and had the Wizards like in the top 3 or 4 in the East, and they were primed for a playoff run and all of that stuff, and then he hurt his knee. I love me some Wizards Jordan. I love the huge games that he had with that team. I know you're not super fond of it because lifetime Bulls fan, and you didn't really like the fact that he came back, and then came back with the Wizards.
Conflicted.
Yeah, and whatnot. But yeah, for me, it was amazing. So yeah, I look forward to using it.
Romeo Bigelow, at Romeo Bigelow on Twitter. Late 70s, everyone is on cocaine, and you can win a title with your center having a perm era. 70s era, not in the game.
Romeo, don't be stupid.
And finally, we have Andre Harper at Andre Jamal 79 on Twitter. I can't wait. And yes, I think this has hyped up a lot of people. Even with some of the 2K fatigue and the concerns about gameplay and whatnot, you come with a big feature like this, and it's going to capture people's imagination, get their attention, and get them looking forward to the game and hoping for the best, as we are.
Yeah, the common theme is I can't wait. That's what I'm seeing in comment sections and whatnot, and people are loving this content update. And I'll say again, to end the show on this, what do we want most, Andrew? The gameplay to be good, the gameplay to be fun, to be minimal in frustration and whatnot. And you know what? If we don't enjoy the game, it's going to be disappointing. But boy, we have some great basketball games for the past that we can play, right? And connect on and everything. So it won't be a total loss. But, I do hope it's a great game for the community.
Indeed, but I must say, speak for yourself here, Derek. What I'm most looking forward to is the shoelace physics, as always.
It's not going to be there. I mean, I just already saw a screenshot that the Live King posted of a player's arm going through a player's body. So we haven't fixed that yet. So you're not going to get your shoelace physics, Andrew.
No, well, forget those pre-orders then.
Yeah, exactly. The definitive shoelace version of NBA 2K23 has not been announced yet.
2K24 Shoelace Edition, yeah, that's going to be the special edition in 2K24. You heard it here first.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't pick it up. Actually, that's not true. Let's be honest. I'd pick it up. I'm a collector. I'd have to pick it up.
I'm just imagining the cover, just a shoelace on the cover. Not even a full shoe, just a lace.
You'd have to guess the player that's bending down to tie it.
Yeah.
It could be a whole game.
I really want this to be true now, just put it out there. But, thank you for those responses. Love doing the mailbag each and every week. Derek will be putting out that prompt next week as well. In the meantime, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. Episode number 440 of the NLSC Podcast. As always, we thank you for tuning in. We invite you to join us again next week, either on the NLSC, nba-live.com, or our YouTube channel, or your podcast app of choice. And in the meantime, please connect with us on social media, where you can get in touch with us, and of course stay up to date with all of our content. To that end, Derek, I'll throw it over to you to plug those handles.
Absolutely. Keep your top 10 submissions coming. I thought the NLSC top 10 plays of the week was incredibly strong this week, and it was year 2, week 14. So we've been doing this for a while now, and it's always fun to put together, and we have so many great highlights that have now been archived over the last couple years. So thank you for that, and keep the submissions coming. You can follow me on Twitter at D4384 or at D43G. I'm also on YouTube, D43, and on the NLSC forums, D43.
How about that number one play by the Putback King?
Oh, yeah, Looky the Gamer. Yeah,
yes.
that was an amazing play. That's the best putback I've ever seen in a video game. How could I not put that at number one? But I also want to say that the top 3 all could have been number one. That play by Teddy Bear the Gamer at 317 Teddy Bear on Twitter, where he does a spin move with Jordan into a huge poster dunk on Dan Marley. That looked amazing, very Jordan-like. Excellent play. That was at number 2. And then the Live King sent in a highlight of Buddy Hield hitting a game winner. And then, the celebration after was super classic and awesome and whatnot. Any one of the top 3 plays could have been the number 1 play, but with a lot of great highlights this week.
Countdown just keeps getting better and better. check that out. Please get involved with it. As for where you can find me, I am Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. The NLSC is on Twitter and Facebook at the NLSC. Our Instagram is NLSC Basketball. Our aforementioned YouTube channel is youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep it locked to the NLSC itself, nba-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.